Hello, my name is Frances Fox, and I'm a trained remote viewer, also specialized in interspecies communication, which means I can talk to anything, not just your pet. I can talk to other species, which is very important today because we are becoming, it has been said, part of the galactic family. I know that that is accurate, but perhaps you don't quite believe it yet, and that's okay. This is a chat that gets converted into a podcast, and it is on Spotify and also on Apple. So please recommend it if you like it. And remember that things that are very new may not fit into the paradigm that you have, but that would be pretty typical today, being it that there is a planetary cycle that was talked about 5,000 years ago by the Mayans. That planetary cycle basically has ended. Everything's different. So if you only want to hear what fits within a paradigm that's collapsed, not collapsing, collapsed, this is not where you should be. If you want to hear information that is outside of the paradigm that you were raised under, but that may have information that can help you survive the changes, then you should continue to listen without judgment. Take it as information. Don't be reacting to it. Just let it sit there. I've had to do that. Even in some of my own reads, I get information. I'm like, no, no, wait a second. This is even outside of my scope, but you leave it there. And it may be one of the pieces of the puzzle that can help you remain powerful, strong, and standing with all these waves that are washing over us due to the fact that we are in the age of transformation, which is always chaotic. Anyway, let's get on to the interesting stuff. We can go, I want to first go to the what should be front and center for all of us, but is not, which is sex. Why should it be front and center? Because the biggest issues we face on the planet today revolve around sex. Population collapse has to do with people not feeling an instinct that humans have, which is the sexual instinct, what causes us to reproduce ourselves. What happened to it? What erased that? Why are the younger people apathetic? They're not even controlling the instinct, they just don't feel it. And then we have population collapse. We have addiction to pornography. What is going to take down, apparently, a lot of people feel this society today is sex trafficking. There we go with the sex again. Population collapse has to do with sex. You cannot have babies if you're not having sex. Too many people signed out, drifted away. What do they do with the instinct? I kind of know. Nobody's wanting to accept it because it has to do with what radiates from their cell phones and all their electronic devices, and they're not aware of that it's microwave, and they're not aware that you can have other frequencies that can help to repair, because they're not aware that their mind is getting burned out. So is their sexuality, which is the element of sexuality is the water element. Microwave dries up water. Anyway, let's not get stuck there. Sexual abuse, big theme in society today. And what is sex all about? Sex is about orgasm. Oh my God, I said that word. If my kids were here, my son would say, Mom, do you know that one day, probably a decade and a half ago, I walked into my daughter's house, and her husband, who's very conservative, was said, My brother said you were on the radio today. And I went, Oh, yeah, I was on the radio show in the morning. Um, Javier Seriani, very interesting Argentinian radio personality who was born to shove shame in our faces so that we would resolve that issue of shame, which is the most negative emotion humans have. Anyway, so my son in law says, We're talking about sex. And I said, Yeah, I was. Okay. But that basically is a reaction of most people. So we can't talk about sex, which is really about orgasm. And we really, we can't talk about orgasm either. Oh my God, Francis, what is the matter with you? You know what? Causal. I work on root cause of things. Why are so many people so inhibited in terms of not just talking about it, that's not that big a deal, but in terms of having it, understanding the value of orgasm? Do you know what orgasm is? It's spiritual ecstasy. You don't believe it? No problem. Why don't you look up Saint Teresa? Famous statue, I think was Bertolini's famous statue, where she's laying there like this, and there's an angel with a lance in his hand. Okay, read her autobiography and her description of spiritual ecstasy. It's orgasm. Simple. So we are getting blocked in terms of spiritual ecstasy, which for us is orgasm. Now, the Buddhist monks seem to resolve that without having to have an external mate, because those two energies they pull together. I don't know how they do that. You can ask them. I'm not sure they're going to explain it to you, but they don't do much talking. But we need to feel free to talk about things, and we need to get to the bottom of this whole thing of why we are so blocked, having to do with spiritual ecstasy, which is orgasm, which is connection to God. When you have an orgasm for a second, you're connected, and it's like, oh my God. So you have all of these people running around sexually assaulting people, and people that are promiscuous, and the whole thing with the pornography. They're looking for spiritual ecstasy, and they're not going to get any help from society because society doesn't know. So I'm putting that on the table now, that we need to be able to discuss these things openly, and we need to find out. I myself have now been pushed back to the investigations having to do with sexuality, having to do with the night visitor that I get, that's a very famous US senator. I never met him. I met him personally for the first time in my bedroom because his astral spirit was there. And then I'm just going to make this very short. What he was looking for, which I had heard about but didn't believe in, but maybe my lens was not wide enough. Looking for using my Kundalini sexual energies in order to travel off planet, which is basically where God is. Anyway, he was not there last night. This is good. But why was he there the night before? It was a new moon. And if I had looked at the clock, I probably would remember the time, and it might have been exactly the height of the point of the new moon. Black magic is done a lot during new moons, full moons, and eclipses, because for some reason the black magic is more powerful. Okay, so we're going to get off the subject of sex. No problem. We're going to get on to the subject. We're going to do the map, the US map, and then we're going to show the map of Mexico. And I would like to tell you that having not dealt with emotions may take down this country, because we are all having huge emotional reactions to the reaction of the people that are reacting to the fact that Trump won and that there are changes. And do they have to go back to work? All the federal employees in person. I love it when one of the requirements is you have to say whether you got another job while you were at home working from home. I've known entirely too many people that have done that. So, in other words, people are getting caught every which way, and it is not a bad thing, but there is an emotional reaction, and they're human, it's understandable. What are we doing with it? One of the things we're doing with it is we're creating energetic breaks in the other dimensions, and I am predicting a lot of earthquakes or other natural disasters, but mainly earthquakes is what it feels like to me. Future's elastic and plastic. We already, I think, continue to have earthquakes, not sure, in Maine, and I read it, and it was the rage of a group of heavy duty, maybe there were also politicians there, I don't know, but it felt more like business people that own very large businesses getting together to figure out what they were going to do now with everything that's going on in the country. And they had a rage, which they repressed. I guess they were trying to just have a meeting in which people were not just screaming and crying. And Mother Earth took on that energy. Maybe it was on a boat, and that's why it was off the coast. That would be interesting. There was an earthquake. But there's a lot of people in a rage now. There's a lot of people that have legitimate complaints that are in a rage, and a lot of people with not legitimate complaints, but still have a reaction of rage because their life is changing. Somebody's pulling the rug out from under them, and that is a human right. But the problem has been that we have not understood the astral force of emotions. In Hinduism, they know that astral particles, which are particles of emotion, are a force. And in Star Wars, when they say, may the force be with you, what they're saying is, may your astral spirit body, which is the gold one in the graphic on screen, may it be with you. In other words, may your physical body, the one all the way to the left, be totally aligned and integrated with your astral emotional body, which means that you be integrated with your emotions. Well, what does society teach us? Polite. To be civilized is to control and repress your emotional reactions. I read some place years ago and I have not been able to find it again. So now I'm not 100% sure it's accurate, but that the map of the cradle of volcanology is also the map of civilization. Northern Africa, Mideast, south of Europe. Anyway, so let's go over the maps and I'll explain to you what it is that's going on that is causing me to warn you that the United States, if something, it's not that something doesn't happen, there has to be a responsibility for our legitimate emotional reactions to what's going on. And I'm going to remind you it again. As above, so below, an hermetic principle in metaphysics. When you have cancer, something happened that made you legitimately angry, but also aware that you're impotent to do anything about what made you angry. So why scream? Just let it go. But this let it go, it stays within your assemblage of bodies. And 24 to 27 months later, you get a diagnosis of cancer. And it generally has to do with your astrological sign, and it generally has to do with somebody that you love. So that's what makes it so powerful. Okay, so we're going to get cancer. We don't do something, but we're going to do something. Last night I went to bed and I was very overwhelmed by what I was seeing in Mexico, but I'm going back to it tonight at 9, and we're going to get this. We're going to at least deal with it rather than watch it and go, my God, Mexico is losing its vibe, because the United States is losing its vibe too. But the future is elastic and plastic, and that can turn around in 2 seconds. So let's go ahead to the map of the United States. I do have it here. Here we go. Remember that when I do these maps, what I sketch is what is most important, not what I necessarily want, but what is most important. So what are we seeing here? I'm not sure what we're seeing in the upper corner of the United States to the left, which I think isn't that Washington State? It's green, which is good. And then there's an arrow and a question mark. I don't know what that is. The pyramids in the Gulf of Mexico are smaller. And that came up yesterday because of all the rage in the country. And everything has to do with frequencies and the law of attraction. We're going to attract the protection of the Galactic Federation if we have a certain frequency, and we're going to lose it if we don't hold that frequency. So on the 15th of January, I think it was 11 in the morning, I was doing something else, and I've already told the story several times. All of a sudden, I had to paint the map of the United States. And what I painted was a huge Star of David on top of the United States, which is a Galactic Federation like starship on the United States in that moment, due to something that happened. And it turned out that the peace treaties in the Mideast had been signed or agreed on at 11 o'clock in the morning. So that kind of energy of looking for peace is what gets us the extra protection. Okay, are we looking for peace right now in the United States? I would say that we're at a place where we're looking for fairness and for setting things up to where it makes sense in the United States. But the process is upsetting to millions upon millions upon millions of people. Does it mean we stop the process? No. What can take us down is not the process. What can take us down is our reaction to the confrontation of the two sides, etc. And remember that the heart energy center, the name is called Anahata. Okay, so why am I telling you that? Because the definition of the name means no sound. Nothing is hitting something else. There's no hitting against each other in the heart chakra. Why? Because in the heart chakra, you have what's called intelligence of the heart, which means that you understand relationships. What does that mean? You understand the relationship when you see things, not relationship of people. The example I use is going to be irritating, but I'm going to use it. We had a problem in Afghanistan, a big, big problem in Afghanistan with the Taliban. But you really, if you use intelligence of the heart, you cannot get upset about it because we were the ones who set up and created the Taliban. So if you raise to a higher level, you go, oh, we're responsible for that. Well, okay, let's get that taken care of. But if you go to a lower level, you're going, these people are our enemies. Yeah, but we created the enemy because we needed them to go against another enemy. Anyway, the intelligence of the heart is where things are not hitting each other because there's a higher level of understanding. Okay, so we have to have that here. I'm talking about the United States now, but people still have their emotional reactions because we haven't finished evolving to that level yet. So let me continue with the map. So there's a spiraling down of rage in Arkansas. I don't know what's happening in Arkansas, but something's happening in Arkansas. We do have and then it's creating a portal, which is not good. But we have seen when we do these maps that these things can be closed up very easily. I guess if you get on it, right when it's happening. Then we have black magic in Maine, and remember there's an invasion coming in through there. And then Florida is losing its vibe. I'm not painting green there. And too many frustrated people, I guess. I don't know. I'm just sketching this. Okay, so that is the United States. So now let's go ahead and look at Mexico because this is Mexico. Mexico did not look like this a week ago. Those are all spiraling, and eventually they'll open portals of rage and hatred. Rage and then hatred directed at the United States. That's kind of understandable because of decisions that are being made that, in my opinion, are necessary. And by the way, most of the people that were Mexican that are in my chats were kind of in agreement. But there is a natural reaction, human. Our astral spirit body, which is our emotional body, is 2 years old. It's how we're born. And then our parents and society start to correct us and shut down our emotional outbursts. And then we become civilized, but then we start getting sick and we're not ourselves anymore. So I went ahead because I was so shocked at what I saw with Mexico. My followers said, why don't you ask the dolphins? Which is what they tell me and which I should do every time I'm having to deal with something that I really, let me get this off of the screen, that I really don't quite know what to do with, because those spiraling that you're seeing, all of that is contributing to it's going to contribute to a lot of earthquakes. Natural disasters, but what I'm picking up is earthquakes. So I went ahead and asked the dolphins, and when I read it, I went, there's no way I'm sharing this. What are you, crazy? I'm not sharing this. And then I decided, I think that I'm not the one that should be deciding what I should be sharing or not sharing. So I'm sharing it. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on a second. I should have pulled it up because I'm going to read it literally because I don't like what it says. Okay? So I need for you to know that this does not come from me. It does come from the Dolphins, who honestly, most of the time, when I get messages from them, I don't believe it. And then it turns out that what they said was accurate. So this is, and I'm actually going to put this in the chat. Okay? I'm reading here about the earthquake in Maine. Due to too much chaos in large industries that are fearful of Trump's changes. And then I asked why there, and they said keep searching and you'll find Iron Mountain, which I understood there was a meeting about how do we keep our prosperity going? What do we need to do to keep prosperity going? You should find that book because at the end, I think what they came up with, I read it decades ago, was let's say there's an alien invasion. And then we can gear up again for war, which time these big companies will have big business. Okay, this is what the Dolphins said yesterday, and I'm not happy about sharing this, but that is what has gotten us in. We were in the age of information, and then too much information wasn't shared. They went into disinformation, and then we end up where we are today. Okay? So the fact that the miasms is not showing up on the map that I did of the United States does not mean it's not there. The maps are to show what's most important for me to know now. Okay? Here we go. This is what the Dolphin said about Mexico last night, probably 9 o'clock at night. And when I were asking, what do we do about Mexico? It has to do with all the red spiraling. And what I said was, there's going to be earthquakes. There's going to be catastrophes. The earth can't take all of this rage that's spiraling. In other words, it's not being purified out. Ah. And then I put, can we help? That's where the words say that. Okay, what do we do about Mexico is what I asked. All that rage. And then it says the martyr syndrome at a national level. I always tell my female followers that are from Mexico that the mothers have a martyr syndrome. They don't take care of themselves, and then it's, look what happened to me. I got all these diseases. Anyway, and I ask, how can we help Mexico? And how can we help? And then the Dolphins answer, Mexico passed a line when the president of Mexico decided to be literally stupid. I did not like that word, but that's what they gave me. The president of Mexico decided to be literally stupid in negotiating with Trump, wanting to blame him and make fun of him. I don't make this up. If I'm going to make something up, it is not going to be that. I wouldn't have put the word stupid. I actually like the woman. She's Jewish, which to me, and I'm not Jewish, means she's got discipline. And I think discipline is really important, bro, because of my military background. And then a lot of my Mexican followers sent me emails and said it last night. It's true. Everybody in Mexico is in a rage and they would love and are blaming Trump, and they don't feel that the president has handled this correctly, the president of Mexico. But that's not the point. The point is this. This is what Mexico looks like in the other dimensions. You cannot continue in business with all of that spiraling rage. And that was not there a week ago. Now, it is true that I have told my followers, the Montristas, listen, we cannot remove all of this fire that you have in Mexico. Everybody in Mexico needs to reduce it because we've tried and we haven't been able to. We've been able to clear it in other countries and other things. It's too deep. It's too much. And then now we get everything with the border. And by the way, when I say I don't understand why Mexico would allow millions of people to go through there, my followers that are Mexican they say the same thing. We don't get it either. But then we don't get why Biden let him come in. So stuff that's behind the scenes we're not privy to. So, in terms of all of this, being it that I don't work for the government, and when I did, I was never compensated, I am going to tell you that I do stress management. So, I think I'm going to have to set up a company like tonight at 12 and have somebody hire me to do stress management for this country. Because if this rage that is developing, and that we can see when we look at the congressional hearings and we can see every place, and we're not there yet, if that is not stopped, the emotional reaction to the change of government and the changes that come with it are going to take the country down. I did stress management decades ago, and I was hired by a corporation who, when they had a change of management, I was promptly fired. But when I did it, my training in stress management, which was only for the highest level people in the company, which were the private bankers, very conservative company. It was the highest rated program that they had had. But I was kicked out immediately when somebody new was running the bank and they said, "And who is she?" I have a university degree. I I had just retired from a prosperous, legitimate, for its industry, large business. But my background as a remote viewer doesn't fly well with conservative people that have to answer to boards. That's unfortunate. And that will change. That will change. So, this chat is not about me setting up a subsidiary of whatever it is that I'm doing for stress management, even though the truth of the matter is that needs to happen. This chat is a forewarning that we need to deal with the emotional, legitimate emotional reaction to what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Darn, this chat is not about Mexico, even though I'll read you that is at the bottom is not the name of this chat, but I tried to change it 3 times and it didn't change. But let me tell you what that's saying. Mexico, negative vibe because of hate, and then natural catastrophes. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and do the purification mantra. It's so hard to get people to use the word hate because everybody goes, "No, I don't hate." Your astral body is 2 years old emotionally. When it doesn't behave like a 2-year-old, it's because you have castrated it, burned it, tied it down, duct taped it, and then it's a very socially acceptable person who's already getting sick inside because of all the toxicity of human normal natural reactions. So anyway, that title is not supposed to be there, but whatever. So we're going to do. So I can put in, even though we hate, we love and accept ourselves, or we can put, even though we're frustrated, and be so much nicer. But why don't we get there quickly? I'm going to put the hate. So even though we hate, we love and accept ourselves. I want you, as I'm doing this, okay. And I'm going to get the Fox sensory therapy video and I'm going to put it on screen and we're going to do 10 minutes. But right now, self-assess from 1 to 10. How do you feel? 1 is you want to slit your wrist. 10, you feel great. Let me put up very quickly the white dress. Pay attention to it. And it's mainly to compare it to when we do 10 minutes of this mantra that we all need. Okay? It's not the United States and Mexico. By the way, the root cause of that rage in Mexico has something that happened 200 years ago when the United States and Mexico fought over territory, Texas, 18 something, 1884, something like that. I don't know the date. And Mexico lost. And that's the way we are. When we get cancer, we can get it 24 to 27 months after an incident in which we felt rage and impotence. But if I go back, I will find that it was an incident that happened similar, totally similar incident when the person was young. And then that's sitting inside of them, that energy of cancer, but you can't find it. And then it happens again as an adult. So this is, I think, 1884. I could be wrong on dates. Remember, I'm not trustworthy with numbers. And here we are. Not able to negotiate successfully because there's a wound from the past that has not been cleared. Probably self-esteem issues also. So if I have a recommendation to Trump, I would say you should be gentle and take into consideration the people who you're negotiating with or who you're staring down. Because if they have unresolved issues, it can be that unresolved issue that makes them almost unable to negotiate effectively. So maybe a hard line, certainly the decisions have to be whatever it is that they need to be, but maybe in the process you can be a little gentle to kind of take into consideration the issues that they might have, and even more intelligent would be to figure out the issue that they have and deprogram it for them, surrogate. In this case, they're angry because they already took a loss, and it looks in Mexico, and it looks like they're taking a loss, and they want to make a stand. We're not losing this one. So doing silently a mantra surrogate for the other person can soften them to where the negotiating can be more successful. In other words, you need to give importance to what Star Wars considers is your power, which is the force, and it's astral particles, which are particles of emotion that are the force, taking that into consideration and working with it gracefully and elegantly. Okay? So here we go with the music, 10 minutes, and the mantras are repeated in silence, and you expel the breath through your mouth very gently. And if you do this mudra, see how my breathing changes? If you do this mudra and also you can put the back of your hands on your thighs, you're going to relax a lot. Okay? So even though we're angry, and what are we angry? We're going to do, you can just do it. I'd like it directed at the United States and Mexico. You decide who you want to direct it to, or just do it yourself. Let's go. Okay. How do you feel? Go ahead and self assess 1 to 10. Where were you at before? And where are you at now? Let's get the dress up. It's more gold and white. Okay. So we can do this now that we have the information. And I guess I need to stop talking so much about mantras and mudras, which are the hand positions and the assemblage of bodies, and do what will make people more comfortable and talk about stress management. And the stress management that I did, where we were rated the highest rated program in that company, which is a very large company, a very old company internationally. Um, what I taught them was exactly this that I'm teaching you here. So, language, adapting language to introduce new concepts, interspecies communication. Why am I thinking of that now? I don't know. But we will be back tomorrow and we will do another sketch and see where it is that we're at. Today is not such a great day because we've had the battle in Congress having to do with the nominees for power positions. I think two of which have to do with the intelligence community. By the way, the intelligence community in this country are sexually very sick, and the part of them that is in control is very much into cult and black magic things, and that needs to stop. And the only reason it got so bad because the rest of the country is so prissy and they don't like that stuff. Well, you know what? I don't either. But not looking at something is has not been the way to go. Okay? Revelations. All coming out. Thank you. We'll see you again. And do recommend us the podcast on Spotify. Francis Fox.